So Justin, tell me a little bit about yourself as a coach.
Yeah, so I'm Justin, and I'm a Gene Keys master guide for visionary entrepreneurs who are looking to unlock purpose and their higher abilities.
Sweet, man. So for people who have no idea, like myself, what does that actually mean?
So, deep question there. It's a springboard, a platform that can open up a whole lot of different threads from this one simple question. So, the Gene Keys are based on a system where from your date of birth, your location of birth, and your time of birth, it's said to reveal your life patterns, your life themes, your challenges, your struggles, also the breakthroughs that you're meant to happen from those, and from those emerge your higher gifts, your higher abilities, your potential, and your purpose.
So tell me, how is there any kind of a correlation between when and where you're born and your life's purpose?
Yeah, this is one for the skeptics out there. And the way that this goes is based on this information, this data, which is again your location of birth, time of birth, and place of birth. There's this energetic imprinting on your DNA, on your genetics, on your soul blueprint. And from this energetic imprinting is your life experiences, your patterns. And I know it may sound hard to believe, like science fiction or just the occult or very mystical, but I've been voyaging through the Gene Keys for 3 years now, and I've been sharing it with colleagues, individuals, and clients for about 2 years now. And there's just this accuracy that is almost undeniable as you begin to understand how the system works.
So we'll dive a little bit more into Gene Keys later, but how does a guy even get into this? Where did you start?
Yeah, so the Gene Keys are actually an evolution of the human design system, and the human design system may be a bit more popular. It's been available longer. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I heard about this human design system in a Clubhouse room when Clubhouse was popular. Now it's not so popular. And I was so curious about this human design system that I looked up my chart online, but I wasn't able to make any sense of it. I saw a lot of numbers, a lot of symbols, obscure words that had no discernible meaning to me. So that human design system didn't have any benefit to me for years. So there came a time when I was going through some things in my life and in my business, and I was just frustrated at the state of leadership online, in online communities and high-ticket programs. I just felt that there are a lot of brands and so-called leaders who are just looking out for themselves. And I started posting about it. I was entering in conversation about it with colleagues, and one colleague asked for my birth date. And I gave her my birth date, and she said, oh, from this Gene Key 21 is prominent in what you're here to communicate. You're going to have a problem with hierarchy. You're going to have a problem with selfish leadership. It's one of your patterns or life themes. And I was so curious. I was like, what do you mean? I'm talking about this because I'm frustrated, and I've had some bad fallouts with business partners or collaborators that were so-called leaders in these spaces, and I felt I was just expressing myself. And she said, no, it's this Gene Key 21. It's this shadow of control, and it's this gift of authority. So from that, I began to investigate the Gene Key, starting with this 21st Gene Key, and it resonated so much. This one Gene Key 21, resonated so much that I did a deep dive into the entire Gene Key system, and now I'm a Gene Keys guide, and I'm sharing this profound wisdom system with as many individuals as possible. So that's a brief foray into how I got started with the Gene Keys.
So before Gene Keys, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I've always been a teacher.
Okay.
Even here in Chiang Mai, where we've had the pleasure of connecting with each other, I used to be a school teacher here. And from that, I began to teach marketing and sales online after learning marketing from affiliate marketing. and after learning sales, from offering insurance. So I've always been in this role where I just really like and enjoy, I have an affinity for empowering others with wisdom or information or lessons. So when I discovered the Gene Keys, I was still a business coach or a business consultant. And what I started to do was I'd be working with clients who wanted to get more clients. They wanted to increase their lead gen, they wanted an ROI on their investment, they wanted better marketing, better sales processes. And I would start asking them for their birth dates, and I'd reveal to them some of their Gene Keys, and it was profound, it was mind-blowing, and it was also very practical, to the point that I decided that I wanted to shift from being a biz ops coach to being a Gene Keys guide.
Yeah, that's quite the journey, man, especially going business operations into Gene Keys.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know about Gene Keys, I don't know either. I am learning about this with you. But I feel that the theme that we're going to find here is, from the outside, it sounds entirely disconnected. But from the inside, when you actually learn about them, there's probably real strategy there. Is that true?
Yeah, totally. And I was just contemplating the dynamic of my shift from biz ops to this Gene Keys guidance just over the weekend. And I've gone from this very mechanical guidance to this very mystical kind of guidance.
Yeah.
But one thing I say is that I'm very practical in how I approach spirituality. And some people say the woo-woo. I like woo. I like practical woo, where two woos is too much. One woo is just enough.
Good.
So there is very practical benefit for it. And I can say that with these patterns that are revealed through the Gene Keys in your energetic blueprint, there's a shadow and there's a gift. So within that shadow is self-sabotage, it's victimization, it's bad habits, it's things that we know we engage in that are not beneficial to us or people around us, but we do it anyway, and very often it's subconscious. So by understanding a pattern from the Gene Key, understanding the shadow pattern, or we also say the shadow frequency, because a low vibrating pattern causes a low vibrating frequency. By understanding that and shifting that, you can embrace and embody this gift frequency or higher frequency. So that said, there's a very practical benefit. For example, one that comes to mind and that I mentioned before is the 21st Gene Key, which is prominent in my profile. And an example of that is the shadow of control. So what is the shadow of control? Well, it's either you don't exert enough discipline to stay in control of yourself and overcome your weaknesses, or you may exert too much discipline and you're just over controlling. So you can sense the heaviness of it with this shadow pattern, this low frequency of control. And the gift frequency of authority is you let go of control. And because you let go of the need or the feeling to control yourself or others, there's this inner authority that emerges. And yourself and others around you, they just respond to the inner authority rather than you having to control or command or try to attain that authority. So there's this energetic understanding of any one of these 64 patterns, because there are 64 Gene Keys. And, well, I just mentioned one of them, and even that is quite profound. So to understand all 64, and specifically which 64 appear in your Gene Keys profile or your energetic blueprint, can be quite profound.
Yeah, I mean, if that's just the one and there's 64,
Yeah.
Can it be overwhelming to get that much information given to you at once? Yeah,
it totally can, and that's why I've answered the calling to be a Gene Keys guide, because often what individuals do is they hear about the Gene Keys and they go to the website and they get their profile, and it's a free profile, but similar to how I mentioned the human design system a few years ago, when I got my free human design chart, it was a mess of numbers and obscure figures and symbols and words that had no meaning to me. So I missed out on all the benefit from that system for years. And I hear some say the same about the Gene Keys. So as a Gene Keys guide, I'm here to offer just practical, grounded, accessible support for individuals to explore the Gene Keys in the best way possible. And even here, as we're conversing, I feel like I'm living and embodying my calling of being a Gene Keys guide and explaining to you a little bit about this system. And what I usually do is I start with a gene key that may be prominent in someone's profile. And if that one gene key resonates with the individual, then that's a good indicator that it's worthwhile to explore more, rather than sharing the whole system and their profile and that chart and having individuals get lost before they even start the journey.
And you've already looked up my chart. Do you want to tear into what might be a prominent thing for me so people can have an example of what this looks like?
Yeah, sure. I was actually going to mention that. So it's a good segue into sharing with you about your chart. So in the Gene Keys, there are these 11 spheres, and each of these 11 spheres has a different theme. So one of the first spheres that we explore in the Gene Keys is called the sphere of your life's work. And your life's work is what you're here to experience. It's what you're here to do. Also, from the gift frequency, it may be what you're here to share with others. And for your life's work, you have Gene Key 20. And Gene Key 20 is the shadow of, oh, that's what it is. It's coming to me now. It's the shadow of superficiality. But what gift can emerge from a dynamic of superficiality? So it's actually the gift of self-assurance. So from this energy of superficiality, there emerges this dynamic of self-assurance. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that there's actually a higher frequency beyond the gift frequency, and this is referred to as the Siddhi frequency. And Siddhi is a Sanskrit word that means divine essence or divine power. So in regard to this 20th gene key, which is again the shadow of superficiality, the gift of self-assurance, the highest frequency is the Siddhi of presence. So to talk a little bit about the energetics of the shadow frequency, and then I'll talk about the gift and a little bit about the Siddhi to see if it's something that resonates with you. And also because it is a key within my profile, it's one I've contemplated, and it's one that I feel I'm not only sharing with you, I'm reminding myself of. So this shadow of superficiality, or this pattern of superficiality, is this discomfort of truly being yourself. It's almost as if through operating through the shadow frequency, you're behaving based on what you feel the environment calls for, based on what you feel those around you are looking to see within you. So again, it sounds like a very heavy dynamic, and it is, because in life everyone wants to be themselves, but everyone also wants to belong. So how do we maneuver this dynamic of being unique individuals but also belonging with others within our friends or our colleagues or in communities? So there's almost this heaviness that we're putting on a show, or we're performing. We can't truly relax into who we want to be, or who we're meant to be, because there's almost this self-obsession with ourselves, and that obsession is we don't truly know how to relax and just be ourselves. So from the gift frequency, and again, the understanding of the shadow pattern is so that awareness allows you to shift to that higher frequency, or to shift into that gift pattern. Again, it's this self-assurance. From maneuvering this dynamic of not truly relaxing into you understand who you are, because you understand that polarity. And one wisdom of the gene keys is that you learn through the polarities. So you understand and learn the shadow pattern, so you can understand the polarity that is the gift pattern. And the gift pattern is you just know who you are. You walk into a room, you're engaging with your friends and your colleagues, and you're no longer thinking about who you are or how you should perform. It's no longer about theatrics. You've just relaxed into who you're meant to be, and you care, but you don't care. right? You're aware of other people's preferences, and you're aware of your preferences, and you just let it go. You just let it flow. And the highest frequency is presence, right? So it goes from the shadow of superficiality to the gift of self-assurance, and to the city of presence. So presence is exactly what it sounds. It's almost like this enlightened state, almost like Buddhahood, the highest frequency. And you're not even one with yourself. You're like beyond it. You're like one with the universe. You're like connected with yourself. You're connected with everyone around you, and you're connected with what we call, that source energy, or that divine consciousness. So again, that's just one gene key that I'm talking about, and there's 64 of them. Each one has a similar wisdom or a similar dynamic. And again, this is gene key 20, which is at the sphere of your life's work. So I'm curious to know if this resonates with you.
Yeah, there's some resonance to it, right?
Yeah.
And then talking about like the shadow of superficiality, wanting to put yourself in spaces and wanting to be a part of those spaces and blending in.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk from a medical diagnosis standpoint and personality standpoint, aside from the singular woo.
Yeah.
Like, I've got somewhere between ADHD and autism, and a symptom of that is masking, where I'm just automatically picking up and blending in spaces very quickly.
Yeah.
A piece of that is like linguistic sympathy. Like, I'll pick up accents that I don't have really quickly, and it's like unintentional just molding. And that's something that I had from a very young age. So like, coming at it from a different direction, but the exact same trait of just like wanting to blend in, not wanting to be put into spaces and just taking a piece of those. Now, the other side of that same shadow is that many of the tattoos on my body all revolve around the central theme of know who you are, be who you are, stay true to yourself. And I'm not talking I have one. I'm talking I've got a sword that says you are your own secret weapon. I've got one that means stand up for what you believe in, even if it means death. Another, remember who you are no matter where you go. Remember where you came from.
Yeah.
I aspire to have the heart of a lion, courageous, bold, true to its nature. I could keep going.
One thing that is very apparent to me as I share the gene keys and a person's gene keys with them as my vocation as a gene keys guide is that this isn't the first time that someone has connected their tattoos with some gene keys that I've revealed to them.
Yeah.
And the word that comes to mind is synchronistic, or this word synchronicity. And a lot of individuals share with me and share with others that the voyage through the gene keys or exploring their gene keys, there's just these synchronistic circumstances and good fortunes that just arise. Or it can even be that something that has significant meaning to you, enough that you get a tattoo of it, is also related to one of your gene keys. So I find it fascinating. And again, it's from your energetic blueprint, which is from your date of birth, location of birth, time of birth. So you said that you have this dynamic with autism, and it may not be by chance. Like, there may be a pattern there that is not just a shadow pattern, but a breakthrough or a lesson that is able to emerge. And from that, well, there's profound benefit. And I sense that you've already transformed a lot of this gift pattern on your own through your own life experiences. And I find it fascinating that in life we're all on this trajectory, and awareness of that trajectory can allow us to, accelerate the desired outcome of reaping the reward. And I think of this in regard to the hero's journey, right? If you're aware of the hero's journey you're on, then you're more able to defeat the dragon and overcome the evils or integrate the shadows. But I also find it fascinating that even without awareness of someone's gene keys, like, they're already shifting to that higher frequency. They're already shifting to embody more of that gift. And sometimes when I share it with individuals, which I sense this being some of the case here, is confirmation or certainty or validation that the pattern that you've been working on is actually a pattern that, again, isn't by happenstance, it's by design.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think much of the piece of the journey that I'm on now is absorbing the shadows of, in the beginning when you're in self-development and you're working on yourself, it's like, there's all these things I'm going to change. I've got these patterns. I'm going to go fist fight my old self. And then you do that for a couple years and you get to a point where it's like, all right, so my old self is still here. Yeah. They never left the room. And now I've created this internal tension. And it's this layer of self-acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And it's coming back and taking ownership of everything that you tried to change and go, actually, I don't need to change that. I get to love that part of myself now.
Yeah. You get it. That's exactly the wisdom of the gene keys. And I say the gene keys, but it's really a wisdom that is a synthesis of all teachings and all traditions that share this message of just wholeness and love and compassion and awakening. But you've said it, so I know that the gene keys are a system that even if I'm introducing it to you under the gene keys, like you're still already familiar with like the core wisdoms. And it's just that our shadows or our self-sabotage patterns or even the aspects of ourselves that we may want to isolate or ostracize, what is necessary for integration and for shifting these frequencies and overcoming these bad habits or self-saboteurs is love and acceptance and bringing them in rather than pushing them away. And as simple as it sounds, it's hard to do, and most people in different cultures and societies, they do the pushing away rather than the bringing in. So it's the simple wisdom that has a lot of practical benefit.
Yeah. My opinion, especially, I speak to a lot of different coaches. I know a lot of different modalities. I learn a lot of them by osmosis.
Yeah.
And what works for everybody is a little bit different, but at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. We're all trying to come to the same place. Yeah. We're all trying to come to the same sense of self. And like you're talking about is it transcends different societies, right? Like it's all the same stuff. It's just that you've got a little bit different of a language to speak with it and maybe a little bit more of a practical tool.
Yeah, I'd say so, where even if someone isn't aware of their gene keys, energetic blueprint, even if they're not aware of the specific keys within who they are, they may still be patterns that are affecting them in their lives. And even beyond that, we're all affected by different patterns within our lives. And it's through awareness, through whatever means possible, through whatever tools possible, or whatever coaches available, or whatever way you come through this self-awareness, it can be transformative. So I do agree that it's prevailing in all cultures and other societies, this underlying message or this underlying calling of awakening to just understand yourself. You know, the words from the oracle at Delphi come to mind is just know thyself. And even though I refer to myself as a Gene Keys guide, I also feel that the core of who I am, you know, underneath the label of being a Gene Keys guide is I'm an advocate of individuals knowing themselves more deeply by whatever way possible. The Gene Keys system, through contemplation, through meditation, through being in conversation with others, like whatever approach you have to understanding more about yourself is just, it's just so profound.
It's all about how much of yourself can you learn, how much of yourself can you accept.
Yeah. There's this one saying that comes to mind, and I shared this with more and more colleagues recently, and I'm not even sure where I heard it from, but I heard it from someone who heard it from someone, is that you can only meet others as deeply as you've met yourself.
Absolutely.
And I really like that, because as a guide or as a coach, as a mentor, it really challenges you to meet yourself more deeply and not just be satisfied with the depth at which you've met yourself, because you want to meet others, you want to empower others, you want to help others to grow. That means we have to consistently go deeper and further inward so that we can really see others for who they are, so that we can empower them to degrees and levels that they may not have been able to attain on their own.
Absolutely. So on that, how can somebody use the Gene Keys to their advantage?
Yeah. So I'd say that in referring to the gene keys, there's more than one dynamic here. There's more than one level here. So the gene keys as a system is getting your profile, which you can do for free online. And some individuals are very capable of going on that solitary individual journey. I do believe that as our societies and cultures grow, especially with all these distractions and all these technologies available to us, I think there's something very special about exploring your gene keys with someone who is not only familiar with the gene key system, but is also familiar with you. So that said, there's a gene key system, right? A very practical system that again is based on your date of birth, location of birth, time of birth. But I also say that there's a gene keys approach, which is more of a philosophy to life, and in a lot of ways business. And that is some of what we're talking about. It's more about integration, self-awareness, softening our shadows and relaxing into who we're meant to be, sharing more compassion within ourselves and others. So either way, like the gene keys approach to life as a philosophy or the gene key system, I feel both have amazing benefit, practical benefit, and to put those together, it's just amazingly transformative. So to understand your patterns in any way possible, like we mentioned, is very beneficial. So the practical approach to the gene keys would be, well, to understanding the system, understanding one gene key at a time at a different sphere. And again, we talked about the sphere of your life's work in Gene Key 20 there. Like even contemplating that one key has a lot of benefit. And there are 11 spheres within your profile. Again, each one has a different theme. We mentioned life's work. Other themes might be your evolution or the sphere of your radiance or the sphere of your vocation. And each one has a different feel to it. So to deeply understand and contemplate just one gene key at a time can be very practical, very transformative. And we also say that the approach to the gene keys or the approach to life is just a contemplationary approach. So the more you contemplate, the more you transform your life. And through the lens of the gene keys, the more you contemplate any one gene key, the more aware of that pattern. You just know that pattern, and you can operate more from that gift frequency or that higher frequency, which again benefits yourself and others. Because the gift is not just for us. The gift is once we make that transformation, we can help others make that transformation as well. So in regard to us, because we both have this Gene Key 20, it's not just overcoming this pattern of superficiality and not being truly present as who we are for ourselves, but it's understanding that pattern and transforming it so that we can operate from this gift frequency of self-assurance more, and then we can share with others how they can make that same transformation, even if that key is not part of their profile. So that's some of the practical benefit that I sense from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a coach who's out here trying to help other people take accountability to change their lives, what's a better way to do that, right? To show up in the way that we have, to show the things that we have gone through, and to show others that these are the changes I've actually tangibly made. And not from a space of being braggadocious or anything, but just from a space of, if I have done it, you can do it too, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between contemplation and overthinking?
Yeah, that's a good question, yeah. So contemplation, well, the whole Gene Keys approach, and again, the Gene Keys approach, not as a system, I consider a philosophy. And as a Gene Keys guide, I embrace and practice that philosophy as much as I can. So we say that there are 3 different ways to approach. We use the word absorption. When you're aware of your shadow patterns and you integrate those shadow patterns, you shift your frequencies. And those 3 ways are meditation, focus or concentration, and contemplation. So we say that meditation is very yin. There's a very feminine energy to it. It's just about accepting and letting go. In Thai, the words that come to mind are sabai sabai. Just relax, right? Just relax, just let it go. So again, that's meditation. And then concentration or focus is more yang. It's more masculine. It's more direct. It's more you're seeking the solution to an answer. You're trying to solve a problem. And we say that contemplation is both yin and yang, where it's this playfulness of the mind, where you're looking to solve a problem not through effort, but through playful allowing, which kind of combines that yin and yang dynamic. So with that said, I feel that overthinking may be some of that heavy, concentrative focus. It's almost too much yang energy. It's like you're trying too hard to solve a problem. And with overthinking, sometimes it's not even about trying. Sometimes it's a loop. We don't even know that we're overthinking. So I would say that contemplation is very intentional, and it's very relaxed, and it's very playful, where even the phrase overthinking, there's this heaviness to it. Even overthinking, there's this excess to it. So I would say that even in me responding to you, I'm contemplating the answer, right? I haven't been asked that before, but I'm contemplating the answer.
Yeah.
And that is some of the simple wisdom or the simple practice of the gene keys. Like there's something that you're looking to answer, you just contemplate it. So I'm contemplating the answer to you there, but you can also contemplate one of your gene keys. You can contemplate a problem that you have in your business. You can contemplate a problem that you have in your life or in your relationships. So again, the contemplation is just this very soft, relaxing, playful approach of tackling anything in life with the power of your mind.
Absolutely, and I think that's an important distinction to make, right? And the word that you used that really stood out is looping. When you're overthinking, you're just continuously looping on the same thought. There's a stuckness to it. You're just staying stagnant. Versus this contemplation, it sounds a lot more fluid, and just there's an energetic free flow, and it's not something of like, I need to solve this problem, but it's the opportunity to give time and thought space to how you want to proceed.
Yeah, I'd say you expanded on that dynamic of contemplation very well. And what is contemplation? I believe that through the art of contemplation, any individual can add to the dynamic of what contemplation is through their own experience. And I feel the same way about the gene keys, right? Like, sure, I may have shared about this one gene key 20, but the more any one individual experiences that one gene key or that one pattern of life, the more they articulate and express what it means to them, like the more profoundness it has.
Absolutely. I think that Gene Key 20 might be a reoccurring theme within coaches as well.
Yeah. I'd concur with that, just feeling into it, because coaches, they're often looking to guide or mentor or teach individuals just to be more comfortable with themselves. Like I sense that's an overarching theme with that. So I'd say so. Yeah. I'll have to contemplate that one more. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you and I both have exposure to a lot of other coaches as well. That's something that I would be curious about just to see.
So Sean, when I was looking at your date of birth, location of birth, time of birth before our session here, I saw that it was the incarnation cross of the Phoenix. And I must have thought that you told me that you knew that was your incarnation cross, which is also your life theme, because you have a tattoo of a phoenix on your back.
And I have never heard of an incarnation cross, so what does that mean, and why do I have a tattoo of it?
Okay, so again, these synchronicities. I thought that you knew of this synchronicity, but I'll share it with you. And even now, I'm just like, wow, this stuff is too good to be true, which is why I'm a Gene Keys guide, because there's this certainty or this validation or these certain symbols or mythological creatures that you're drawn to, and it's revealed that, oh, not only are you drawn to it in your life and you love this image or you even have a tattoo of it, but it's also part of your energetic blueprint, which is your life themes or your patterns, things that you may be drawn to. So when I shared with you your Gene Key 20, which again is this gift of self-assurance, that one gene key and also 3 other gene keys, so 4 gene keys total, make up your incarnation cross, which is why it's a cross. So what they say as being the 4 most prominent gene keys in your energetic blueprint or your profile make up the cross. It makes sense. 4 points across. And incarnation is what you're here to experience. They say that it has a lot to do with your purpose, some of your more prominent patterns in life. And yours is the life theme of the Phoenix, which can be said, I say life theme sometimes. It's also the incarnation cross of the Phoenix. And it just has a lot to do with just rebirth, reinventing yourself. So some of what we talked about with that shadow of superficiality and the energy of just self-assurance and presence is part of the life theme of that Phoenix. And I'll share another one just to express a bit more, and I love to talk about the gene keys. I may not get into all 4, but I can get into another one. Maybe we'll start with 2, or we'll go into 2. So another one of these, and again, I'm sharing the second gene key with you because all 4 of these gene keys make up your incarnation cross, which again is the Phoenix. You have a tattoo of it. So this next gene key is one that, funnily enough, I was just contemplating this one like earlier today, or yesterday, or over the weekend. Because what I do, I encounter these gene keys, and even if it's not in my profile, there's a resonance to it, or there's a lesson there that I'm trying to unpack. So I'll contemplate it, even if a gene key is not one of my 11. So this is gene key 34, which is at the sphere of your evolution. So what the sphere of your evolution is that when you engage with this pattern, it's when you really grow and mature and evolve. So yours is gene key 34, and it is the shadow of force, and it is the gift of strength, and it is the city of majesty. So again, that low shadow frequency of force, just believing that if you don't take action and just exert force and just go for it, that things won't happen. There's almost a lack of trust in the universe, or that things will go your way unless you, again, just make it happen. So beyond that is the gift of power. And there's also that book, which is, if you've heard of it, Power versus Force. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's about force being, I mean, I'm sure whoever wrote that book was contemplating the same gene key 34, yeah. But it's just about how force is almost like that excess of yang energy, where you just, if you don't go out there and take action, nothing's going to happen. You know, some of the things that come to mind are just bro marketing or manipulative sales tactics. It's just, if you don't manipulate, if you don't take, if you don't exert control, then things don't happen. But power also has a lot to do with this dynamic of just presence and just allowing things to be. So I sense there is a synergy between the 20th gene key, which I mentioned, and these are actually programming partners, gene key 20 and gene key 34. So programming partners appear at opposite sides of the wheel if you were to order all 64 gene keys in a wheel. And what they say is that for the programming partners, the shadows are heavier if you're operating from that shadow frequency. And you can kind of sense that, right? Superficiality and force. There's this dynamic of like, oh, well, I got to do what other people want because there's a self-obsession with myself that is predicated on how others perceive me. It's like this paradoxical dynamic there. And there's almost this force of like, if I don't go out there and get what I want, then it's not going to happen. So beyond that, again, is this gift of power, where true power is not about force, it's about authenticity. It's about that balance between yin and yang. And beyond that is the city of majesty. So it's just, things happen because it's not only your will, but it's the will of the universe. So that said, those are just 2 of the gene keys that interplay with your incarnation cross of the Phoenix. And I just find it fascinating that you have a tattoo of the Phoenix. And out of the incarnation crosses, which is there are 64, you have a Phoenix tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that's coming up for me, especially with the combination of the 2, It's so common in people who work in this kind of a space as well. And I'll just say a quote and then I'll give the context. But the persona is incapable of receiving love. It can only receive praise.
Yeah.
Right? And when you have this shadow of superficiality of trying to blend in and be with others, but you're also out there trying to change the world, what happens is that when you lose yourself, you create this persona of being a good person, and you're out there and you're trying to use force to do good, to make change.
Right.
And as that persona gains more and more recognition, you become more and more disconnected from yourself.
Right, yeah.
And it's that persona is incapable of receiving love. It can only receive praise.
Yeah.
So as you're receiving praise for all of these actions that you're taking, as you're going through and forcing these motions, you're not loving yourself anymore.
Right, yeah.
And no one else is giving you actual love. So you have to let go of all of that to dissolve the shadow and really step into who am I as a person, to start to transcend, to get into allowing yourself to be who you are, to allow yourself and to trust in the process, to not need to create that force, to not need to blend in, to really step into this authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah, I sense the other energies and patterns of your life theme, your incarnation cross, just hearing you express that. So I'll touch on those briefly without getting too heavy into the gene keys. And then I'm curious to know why you do have a tattoo of a phoenix. So some of the other energies or patterns that make up this life theme, which again is related to the phoenix, is this energy of freedom, where it is going beyond this shadow pattern of victimization, and that can be victimizing ourselves or victimizing others. It has a lot to do with fault and blame, just like why me, woe is me, are the words that come to mind, to just being free of all that, just knowing that initially there may be some struggle or resistance to the freedom or liberation from ourself and others. And when I say self, I mean the ego self, and also the liberation from the perception of others, because there's this balance of just, you want to belong, but you want to be a unique individual, right? You want to take care of others, but you don't want to be dependent on the appreciation and praise from others, right? So there's this balanced nuance there. And also one of the other energies or patterns that is the last of the four with your incarnation cross has to do with this pattern of dishonesty. And it has to do with dishonesty with ourselves as much as it is about being dishonest with others. And some of what we're saying, I sense there's a lot of overlapping energies, and that's how it goes, right? The gifts, the energies overlap, the shadows, the energies overlap. When you're dishonest with yourself or others, you're not truly being your authentic self. And that's a word that I sense is important to you and I, this authenticity, not just the word, but the energy behind the word, the realization, the awakening behind the word of authenticity. And beyond this heavy shadow pattern of dishonesty then leads to intimacy and transparency. So that is the higher frequencies that evolve from this lower frequency of that dishonesty. So, just there, I've touched on actually all four of the main patterns and energies of the incarnation cross of the phoenix. And now I'm curious to know, why do you have a phoenix tattoo?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of overlap some of my own story with that, of like talking about victimhood, and just in my childhood, I wasn't in a good place. Like, I lived with a single mother and we had a stable home. There was always food to eat, things like that. But I didn't have a male role model. I didn't have friends, and I wasn't seen by my peers, and I just wasn't in a good place. And I had depression from a young age that lasted a long time. So there was a lot that needed to be overcome there. And for me, that cycle of overcoming then would always lead to steps back as well. Especially in my early 20s, I had a lot of addiction issues. And there was leaps forward and steps backward, and leaps forward and steps backward. And it was just like a cycle of rebirth. And it was just something that became very prominent to me, of just like, I have risen from the ashes a number of times. But that also involved burning myself to the ground. And it just came to a point in time where it felt very resonant to me, and I went out and I got a phoenix, because what else burns itself to the ground but continues to rise from the ashes?
Yeah.
Something that I want to touch on with that, like, with the victimhood, there also comes ownership, right?
Yeah.
Of the empowerment of, at what point in time do you want to take this radical accountability and make the change for your life? And with that dishonesty, especially in America, I grew up with a white lie culture of like, oh, it's better to just protect people's feelings. And like, I can remember episodes of kids shows talking about white lies being okay, right? And a big piece of my journey has just been with honesty of, I would rather have people like, I would rather you hurt me with the truth than try to protect me with a lie.
Yeah.
And I try to live by that. And earlier on in that cycle, when I was having more trouble speaking to my own needs, I had dealt with an abusive partner in the past, and I just really had struggle speaking up. That was also a theme from my past, was having trouble speaking up. And a mantra that I held was, you can lie to anybody else, but don't fucking lie to yourself.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was something that I really had to, like, it was a wake-up call of like, that inner narrative needs to be true, man, right? And we talk about authenticity and what does that even mean? And one of my favorite definitions comes from Alex Hermosi.
Sure.
And Alex Hermosi says that true authenticity is when our thoughts, our words, and our actions are all in true alignment. And our thoughts are fucked, so it's easier to fix those than to fake the other two. Bring that back to that self of like, man, you can lie to anybody else, don't fucking lie to yourself.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, there's also a glossary of empowerment for the gene keys, and one that reflects that dynamic that Alex Hermosi talks about is, we call it individuation, where there's just an alignment between your thoughts, your actions, and your words. Alignment between how you operate in your job, your career, your vocation, and in your relationships with your family. But it's almost the same energy of congruency, which is what I mean with the wisdom of the Gene Keys approach, which is, again, a synthesis of everything. There's different individuals across the globe, from ourselves to Alex Hormozi to the author and founder of the Gene Keys, who are all describing this universal truth in different ways. I find it fascinating that as I was sharing just bits and tidbits with you about your incarnation cross and the 4 patterns or keys that comprise it, that you're just able to express and articulate so much from your own life experience. And I think that's a lot of validation to the validity of the Gene Key system, because even as I share, I'm like, well, this is the system and these are the Gene Keys there and these are a little bit about the patterns. You just had so much to share from your own personal experience that resonates with it, and some of it is just like, you know, your patterns in life, your struggles and challenges in life, as you spoke to, are not just coincidence. They're not just by mistake or by accident. There's a lesson or breakthrough that is meant to happen from those. And I think there can be a lot of relief from that, because individuals often think, woe is me, or why me? But to know that there's a breakthrough that you're meant to happen through that experience can be very just empowering. Yeah.
So as you're telling people about their gene keys and struggles that they may face, do you find anybody uses that as a cop-out of, this is just my cycle, so I don't have to address it?
I haven't encountered that. And there's a certain space that I hold when I'm exploring someone's gene keys with them, which is what I advocate as a guide, where I sense that dynamic could be something that people experience or think if they explore on their own, without someone really transmitting the core wisdom of the Gene Keys system and the Gene Keys approach with an individual. But I sense, even explored on their own, that there may not be that dynamic, because the language of the Gene Keys that anyone will discover, even if they choose to explore the Gene Keys on their own, has this very integrated, holistic approach to it. So I haven't encountered that, but I'm sure there are those that might see it. It's like, oh, well, if I meant to have this shadow of addiction, that I'm just meant to be an addictive human being, so I'm just going to continue to engage with my addictive patterns, which would be a cop-out. And just because I mentioned the shadow of addiction, which is one of the gene keys, it's one of mine actually, it's gene key 24, and it's actually the sphere of my life's work. And it's not so much being addicted to substances, but it's about being addicted to patterns. The gift is actually invention. And I really like that one. So if you're experiencing this self-saboteur of addiction, either through substances or through habits, patterns that don't serve you, then it's about what can you invent? How can you create a new habit? And again, like I mentioned there, it's just like, okay, you think that the cop-out is you're meant to be addicted because you have this shadow of addiction on your keys. But again, even with the language, it's like, well, there's the gift of invention. Yeah. So can you really cop out and just stay stuck in addiction when you know that the solution and the breakthrough is in the language that is right in the frequency above that? Again, shadow of addiction, the gift of invention.
If someone's feeling really stuck, how can they use this to gain momentum?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. And there are a lot of layers and nuances and factors for any one individual, which is why it can be so valuable to work with a coach or a guide. Like, what is really preventing momentum in someone's life? And again, we've talked a lot in this conversation about words and the patterns and energetics behind the word. What does momentum mean to this individual who's stating that they have a lack of momentum in their life? What are they really trying to gain momentum towards? So in a more general sense, I would say that voyaging through the gene keys can be an amazing, uplifting, and enlightening experience. But it's with integration and shifting of frequencies and also shifting of your habits that change actually happens, that substantial momentum can begin to gain forward traction in. And you know, you've quoted Hormozy, and even before this conversation, we both mentioned him, so we have an affinity for him for sure. And it's how he talks about learning. It's so simple, it's so practical. He talks about learning as same condition, new behavior. So to learn about the gene keys, or to learn about a gene key, to learn about a sabotaging shadow pattern, and to know the gift that is meant to emerge, which is the solution to that pattern, and to engage in the same lifestyle, to engage in the same conditions, but not change your habits, well, you haven't learned anything. You're a dummy. So some of that is you learn the gene keys, and through contemplation, through choice, what habit, what pattern are you going to actively shift and change? Which is why working with someone can have so much value, because there's an aspect of accountability that is hard to establish within ourselves. And hey, shifting patterns, shifting habits, like living our best lives is not so easy, because we can often be self-defeating. And self-awareness is profound. Self-awareness is the grounding, the fertilization for transformation. But if you can have other people expand your self-awareness and hold you accountable to do something with that self-awareness and that learning, well, that's empowering. And I mentioned that because, you know, as a guide for the gene keys, as a coach, I think it's important to say that you can do a lot of amazing things on your own, but if you're still stuck in gaining momentum in a life that you're looking to live, you know, help is always available if you seek it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a question for my own benefit. Is there stuff about your love life in the gene keys as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what I shared with you is your incarnation cross.
Yeah.
So I briefly touched on 4 gene keys that make up the incarnation cross, which is also your life theme. It's also your destiny. It's also your core purpose, your prime gifts. Those 4 gifts of your incarnation cross are referred to also as your prime gifts. And just going through those, it would be self-assurance, strength, freedom, and honesty are those for those life theme of the Phoenix. But beyond that, there are sequences. So the incarnation cross in the gene keys makes up the activation sequence, which is said to activate your higher purpose. It's also referred to as the genius sequence. So it's all the same thing. Incarnation cross, life theme, activation sequence, genius sequence, as again, like words, just different layers and nuances of the same dynamic. And it's said to also activate your genius, and not genius in regard to how smart you are or how intelligent you are, but genius connecting that word to its root, which is genes or genetic. It's your core abilities, your natural abilities that are there within your DNA that you're just meant to unlock. And again, I mentioned yours just a moment ago. So beyond the genius activation sequence of those 4 keys, we then go into the Venus sequence, which is also referred to as the relationship sequence. So those are 6 spheres which transform your relationship with yourself and others. Heal karmic wounds, heal your relationship with yourself, your others, your family. And there's something about the Venus relationship sequence. When you contemplate those shadows, when you encounter those shadows, man, they're heavy. I don't know what it is about it, but through my experience voyaging through those and sharing with others, there's like this heaviness that the shadows have that you don't quite encounter as you do that initial voyage through the shadows of your genius or activation sequence or your incarnation cross. And beyond that, just to round it out, and the gene keys, we really like trinities, as you can tell, like shadow, gift, city. And there are 3 sequences for the gene keys. So I mentioned the genius activation sequence, the Venus relationship sequence. The last one is the Pearl prosperity sequence. And it's how you're meant to prosper. It's what you're meant to shift in your pattern so that you truly know your vocation, you know your tribe, you know the essence of your prosperity. Some say it's your algorithm to prosperity. And they don't have this word in the book. They don't use this language in the book, but I know we're both entrepreneurs, we're both businessmen, coach, consultant, guide. I would almost call this last sequence the entrepreneur sequence because there's so much practical benefit to businesses. So to answer your question, yeah, it does go into relationships. Yeah.
Before we had this interview, I had to text my mom, what time and where was I born? She told me to stop talking to that girl. Have you seen this meme going around?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I just saw that on Facebook yesterday and I wasn't exactly sure what it was referring to, but now I know it's referring to what people do in my line of work, which is astrology, human design, and the gene keys. So it's fascinating because it is something that I may ask someone in marketing terms as a lead magnet.
Yeah.
So I may say like, hey, are you interested in a personalized breakthrough insight into your life theme? And if someone expresses interest, then I say, oh, what is your date of birth? What is your location at birth? What is your time of birth? So it's funny that it's gotten so popular, this dynamic of profound insights from your date of birth, that it's become a meme. So I'm familiar with what it's referring to, and I think it is kind of funny. It reminds me of this one where, hey, I just heard from someone I haven't talked to since middle school. They must have joined a new MLM or network marketing company. Yeah.
A central theme to my message is radical accountability, taking ownership for everything in your life. Like things that will happen, things from outside of your control will always be happening, but it's up to you to take ownership. Do you think that the gene keys are in line with that or a cop out to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's a really good question. I have to think on this for a moment. What comes to mind instantly is that, again, people are so unique and so diverse. And I think that individuals can use any system as a cop-out because systems are just tools. and tools are privy to the internal motivations and preferences of the individual. But I also sense that the gene keys as a system and as a wisdom tool will more than likely resonate with those who are not interested in more cop-outs, because in life there's a lot of cop-outs already. I mean, you turn on Netflix, you turn on YouTube, and you know, sure, there's a lot of great content on Netflix and YouTube, but what I mean is that you engage in the entertainment or systems or tools out there not for personal growth, not to expand consciousness or develop your own self-awareness, but just to waste time. And I may say that someone who feels called to explore the gene keys is probably not looking for distraction. Where the gene keys resonate with people who are really looking to ascend, to evolve, to understand their purpose. And there is a level of discomfort that comes when voyaging through the gene keys, because you are facing your shadow patterns. And I don't think it's going to resonate with this kind of individual that you're referring to. That's what I sense.
Something that we talked about earlier as well is the gene keys present you with a lot of information, right? And we talked about the change in behavior. At the end of the day, all the information in the world won't make change for you. And Yossi Fisher said it really well when he said that information without integration is simply entertainment.
Yeah.
It's up to you to use this information and actually use it, so it's not entertainment, right? Could the gene keys be used for spiritual bypassing?
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting. I was just having a conversation with ChatGPT yesterday about spiritual bypassing, and I've never done that before, and you're asking about spiritual bypassing today. So spirituality is great. You know, expanding your consciousness is great. Self-awareness is great. Meditation is great. Contemplation is great. But there comes a point when it's just feeling better in the moment without any real substantial change. So again, with the gene keys being a tool or a system, I believe people can begin to explore and just use it as another mode of spiritual bypassing, which is also why, as a gene keys guide, I'm here to really advocate the deeper exploration and the integration and the embodiment and the practical aspects of it. Because the gene keys are based on a synthesis of different systems, and some of that is astrology, which is related to horoscopes. And astrology and horoscopes, some individuals look up their information and they say, hey, that's cool, that's neat, and then they do nothing with it. So the gene keys being based on a similar system or related system that can involve a lot of initial novelty. Oh, well, these are my gene keys. Oh, this is my profile. Oh, that's great. And then nothing happens. I do see it as being just entertainment or novelty or a form of spiritual bypassing. And what you're saying, I mean, it really is about just radical accountability and ownership. And the gene keys are a lens or a perspective into that. And one thing you mentioned is this information. So one thing we say with the gene keys approach is that information or knowledge is put into you. Wisdom comes out of you. Wisdom comes from you. So we also say that the gene keys are a wisdom system. So as much as it starts with sharing information, the goal or the desired outcome is as Gene Keys guide, how do I create spaces and create awareness that allow an individual's own inner wisdom to come forth? Because that is true transformation. And also, it's active. If wisdom is coming out of you, yeah. I don't think there's spiritual bypassing going on. I think you've transcended the information and you're really benefiting from it, because there's answers, meaning that is coming within you that wouldn't have come any other way. And it's because you're ready to unlock or allow that wisdom to come through.
Justin, it's been so great to talk to you today. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing with me. For people who want to connect with you, where can they do that?
Yeah, so I'm working on a centralized location, just one link where you can find me. But right now, if you look at Facebook and you type in Just Growth Services, you'll find me. I'm mostly on Facebook right now.
Perfect. And there will be a link in the comments section below.